begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning our learners into super prosers. Phonics and fun, on a journey we'll lead. With every Tuesday, we plant another seed. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Step by step, we'll find our way. Through every challenge, come what may. In our group, you're never alone. Together we'll turn this skill into a stone. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll read, together we'll rise, together we'll rise. Teaching Tuesdays, the skies.
Hello, 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 everyone. Let's see. I am trying to, there we go. Welcome you all to another episode of Teaching Tuesdays. This is Katina Taylor. I am the founder and executive director of Dreams KC, an education nonprofit located here in Kansas City, Missouri, where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. So each and every Tuesday inside of our Literacy the Dreams Way, I still am getting used to saying our new group name. We go live right here, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we give you just a glimpse into our more in-depth parent training sessions, parent literacy training sessions, so that you all have the tools, you have actionable steps and information to implement to support your children on their literacy journey. We do other things as well, so feel free to check us out on our primary Dreams KC page. We're on all social media platforms. It's at Literacy is Liberation, right? So we believe and we hold true the mantra of Frederick Douglass when he stated, once you learn to read, you will forever be free. So we believe that literacy is a gateway to thriving in your own life, thriving in the academic lives of children. And we are committed to building and supporting you all in building competent and confident readers. So 2025, we are really looking forward to engaging the families, the early education instructors or professionals, any caring adult that has an adolescent learner. That's who we are focused on for 2025. All of 2024, 42 episodes of Teaching Tuesdays, we really focused in on parents of the early readers, so pre-K to third grade. Our adolescent readers, as we talked about last week, and we'll go a little bit into more, are beyond those grade levels. However, all of you, no matter the age of your children, no matter the age of your students, if you are looking for information, tools, skills to apply to support them as they become confident and competent readers, you will still get it in 2025 as well. So although we're honing in, you'll hear me use the term adolescent a lot, understand and know that all children benefit from this information, from these Teaching Tuesday sessions, because the skills are the skills. They do not change. What does change are the materials, the supplies, and some of the strategies that we use to reach adolescent learners versus our early learners. Okay, so this again is episode 43. It's episode 2 for 2025, but for in total, we're at episode 43. So we have been together whether it's been live, whether it's been pre-recorded, for 43 weeks right here inside this group. So I'm really, really excited to continue the trajectory. All right. So I want to go ahead, and I think that having the slides bigger than me is what's most important, right? So today we're talking about the science of reading. I know you all have heard a ton about the science of reading. You've heard about structured literacy. We've talked about Scarborough's reading rope and Tomlin's hourglass figure. And all of those things really work together to ensure that all readers, and for us in 2025, that adolescent literacy learner is built into confident and competent readers. If we apply these strategies, these tools, the research around how the brain learns to read, then we are on our way to ensuring that our students have success, not just in literacy, but in all of the content areas. Because if we don't get literacy right, then guess what? We don't get any of the other content areas right. They can't attack the text. They can't attack that academic vocabulary, the specialized vocabulary that is present in those other content areas. So I know as parents, you all want to support the literacy journey of your children, not only at home, but also in partnership with their schools. And so the information that you get during Teaching Tuesday allows you to do just that. So we'll explore how to help your children navigate the challenges of reading, understand the research behind what works, and most importantly, build their confidence in their own ability. If they don't believe it, they won't do it. They won't become it. And so we want to ensure that we're building their confidence in their ability to grow as readers. So we want to jump right in today to this content. This is pre-recorded. Unfortunately, for the next couple of days, I am doing some things in the city that I just didn't think I'd get to my desk and to my computer in time enough to go live. So I wanted to make sure that we stayed consistent and you all got what you need. And so that's why this is pre-recorded. And so we're going to jump right in, right? So you all may have heard me talk about it before, especially in the early weeks of Teaching Tuesday during 2024, about the science of reading. What is that? Why do we keep hearing so much of it? Is it a curriculum? Is it a program? Like, is it something that teachers go to school and they learn? I wish that was the case. And I think moving forward, we will see that increase. But basically, the science of reading is research. It's research, it's data, it's information that explains how we as human beings learn to read and the skills that are needed for children to grow and become confident and competent readers. So it's based on decades of research across various fields, which includes psychology, neuroscience, and education. So all of these cross-curricular data points, research, etc., inform us in terms of how the brain develops, how we acquire and attack the written word, not just the spoken word, right? And then what skills are needed and necessary, what neural pathways are necessary for our children to become confident and competent readers, right? So it's a body of research. It is not a curriculum. It is not a program. It really is, what do we as education professionals, as parents, even as children, what do we need to know? What myths do we need to debunk around how we ourselves learn to read, right? So that's what the science of reading is. Now, I know what the science of reading is before we had this term because my teachers taught this way. My teachers, I remember Paseo Montessori School. I'm dating myself, I bet. I remember the Miss Owens, rest in peace. I remember Miss McConnell and Miss Harris and Miss Brandon. My teachers taught this way throughout my educational experience. And so by the time we got to third or fourth grade, we were already reading. Really and truly, for my siblings and I, we began school as readers for the most part. And we continued to get great, high quality instruction, which allowed us to excel in the academic sphere, so to speak. But not all children have this experience. Not all teachers are aware of the science of reading. And there was a shift that occurred in education, late 80s, 90s, where we saw the science of reading kind of pushed to the side, the research pushed to the side for a shiny new nickel, so to speak, that was called whole language or balanced literacy. And so now a lot of parents are hearing about the reading wars, or they may be listening to podcasts, or they're on social media and they're hearing reading wars, science of reading, whole language, balanced literacy, and they are overwhelmed. What I would tell you is this is not new information. This is not new research. It is continued for decades that tells us how children learn to read, what strategies we need to use, and what are the key components. They are phonemic awareness, phonics. So it is not just phonics. Science of reading is not just phonics. A lot of people will mention phonics and they'll act as if that's a singular solution to ensuring that children become competent readers or closing the gap for our adolescent learners that may have some struggles or may not have mastered some of these key components. So vocabulary, it should get more complex, more in depth as we grow as readers, as we read more and varied texts. Fluency, how smooth, how accurately, how fast are we able to read, because we are not spending so much time attempting to decode new or unfamiliar words. And of course, ultimately, it's about comprehension, right? Making meaning from the text that we're engaging with. That's the core. That's why we pick up a book, a magazine, a newspaper. We are trying to get information, be entertained, etc. But the only way we can do that is if we actually reach comprehension. We're able to make meaning of the text that we are engaging with. And each of these components play a vital role in building our confident and competent readers, right? We can't have one without the other. We can't say, oh, well, they got vocabulary, so they don't need phonics, and vice versa. All of these components are necessary. They are needed to ensure that our children become competent and competent readers. So we talked about these components. Now let me tell you kind of what they are. So when we think about, and actually let me advance my slides for a quick second. I just want to make sure. Okay, I'm going to go back a couple. I just want to, before we jump off this slide. So phonemic awareness, what is that, right? Because I think some families may know, some families may not. Some early career educators may have went to one of the 4,000 colleges and universities in this country, and only 10% of them are teaching the science of reading or how children learn to read. And so many of our educators have not been skilled. And if you saw last week's Teaching Tuesday, we had 70% of adolescent educators that teach adolescents, right? So those content areas, those math teachers, those social studies, science teachers, music, art, whatever, if they are teaching middle school and above, generally speaking, they have not had this information. So what is phonemic awareness? It's the ability to hear and work with sounds and words. Plain and simple, right? That's what phonemic awareness is. Phonics. Phonics is the ability to connect those sounds, the phonemes, with the graphemes, the letters. So sound, symbol, correspondence is what phonics is. Then vocabulary, very simple. What do words mean and how do we use them? So we start talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, right? What do they mean when we use it this way in context, right? That's why it's really important to focus in on also like prefix, suffix, root words, base words, things like that in our vocabulary study, our word study, because that really then helps us, even if we know a part of an unfamiliar word, it really, really helps us determine what that word may mean if we're not near a dictionary and don't have opportunity to look it up. But in context, in learning word parts, then we certainly can figure out what that means. And remember, our content areas like science and social studies, math, architecture, whatever you're studying, any subject area, that it has specialized vocabulary. And so our vocabulary grows over time the more we expose ourselves to different content areas, different types of text, genres of text, fiction versus nonfiction, historical fiction, autobiographies, etc. Right? Fluency. What is fluency? Again, we're reading with expression, we're reading smoothly, we can read with speed. We're not taking on such a heavy load to decode new and unfamiliar words because we've been able to do the phonemic awareness work, the phonics work, and then we can get to the fluency, the vocabulary. And last but certainly not least, comprehension, making meaning or making sense of what we have read. So I just wanted to make sure you all knew what each of those components are, what they mean in simple terms, because more often than not, educators and most professionals, they get so used to using professional jargon that's connected to their careers that we forget we're not always talking to our colleagues or associates or people that are familiar with our work. So my goal here, anytime we have sessions together, is I want to ensure that you all understand educational terms that you'll hear from teachers, tutors, interventionists, special ed administrators, all of the folks involved in the educational process of your children. I want to ensure that you all know exactly what they're talking about, bare bones, plain English. All right. We don't have to make it complicated because that further creates a divide between home and school when we should be bridging the gap, coming together and working as partners to ensure that our students get what they need to be successful. All right. All right. So why does the science of reading matter for all children, but especially adolescents? So remember, we talked about last week, you all know as parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, etc., if you're there, this is a really critical stage in the development, the brain development, the physiological, biological makeup of our children. This is a crucial period for all things. Our brains are growing just as rapidly as they did when they were infants, going into toddlerhood. Also, there's a significant jump in the complexity and the rigor when students transition from third grade to fourth grade and beyond. There's a very significant gap in the quantity and the rigor, the difficulty, right, of the work that students will encounter. And so we want to ensure that we've given them a great foundation and that we continue to build on that foundation so that they are continuing to advance as competent readers, right? So remember, strong literacy skills, of course, are also very foundational for academic achievement across content areas, right? Personal growth. When we say literacy is liberation, because we understand that housing, criminal justice system, healthcare, career paths, be it entrepreneurship, trade or technical school, college or university, etc. Writing checks, financial literacy, digital literacy. If we cannot attack the written word, it's not going anywhere, even if we have technology, then we fail to set our children up for success, and we don't give them the skill sets necessary to thrive in their own lives. I even think about voting, right? If I can't read a ballot, what do we do? So their civic engagement matters as well. So I want us to understand that strong reading skills are foundational and so important for our students to be able to keep up. All right. So that's why the science of reading, teaching reading appropriately, building our children into competent readers is so important. All right. So I want to make sure we pointed out those things as well. So now we're talking about bridging the gap, right? So, I try not to use terms that are deficit based. We have to have real talk though. There are some of our adolescent learners, fourth grade and up, right, who are struggling as competent and competent readers. There are some deficiencies, there are some gaps, there's some challenges that they face, perhaps because they moved around a lot and they went from school to school during the elementary years. They could have had health issues, access to lead, hearing issues, vision issues, some neurological issue that could have come up. They may not have had a really robust or high quality pre-K experience. It could be any number of reasons why we see a child get to fourth grade and beyond and they have some challenges. And so if your child, I told you all last time about the teacher who teaches 11th grade and 75% or more of her students were reading at a second or third grade level. That's the reality of where we are. And so what can we do about it? And that's this work, right? That's why we come together. So we want to talk about what you can do if your child is struggling. So the first thing is we have to assess where they are. So asking a teacher, do an assessment yourself, get with a tutor rather, and ask them for an assessment. Where's their IEP? Where's their 504 plan? We need to look at data and drill down and figure out where their areas of strengths are first, and then the areas for improvement. We have to determine what's going on, right? Sometimes it's foundational skills like phonics or vocabulary. Other times it's that they have spent so little time increasing the complexity of the text they read. If they're not exposed to it, if they're not elevating in terms of the challenging text, the more complex text, then they stay at a really baseline level, even if they have some of those foundational skills. And for some students, it's a combination of both. So we have to assess and identify where they are in order for us to support them, right? So then we want to, once we figure out where their strengths are, we want to celebrate those, and we want to then sit down and have a real conversation with them about, hey, these are some areas we know we need some practice in to get you where we want you to be, for you to be where you want you to be. So then we tailor tutoring, tailor practice, tailor text, right? We individualize and target instruction and support based on what that child needs, not based on everybody, based on what that child needs. Okay. And then as we move on and continue to work with them, we monitor and adjust. Are we giving them too much that it's overwhelming? They're getting frustrated. They're shutting down. Are we giving them just enough? Is it too easy? We need to increase the complexity and the challenge, the rigor, right? So we need to continually observe, monitor, assess, and then we adjust our strategies, the tools, the materials, the supplies that we use to ensure that we're giving them exactly what they need so that they continue to grow. And we are shrinking gaps instead of allowing gaps to persist and grow. All right. So that's kind of the method. That's the way in which we approach it. And not only should you be doing this for your students as you help them at home, you should be having conversations with their teachers. How are they doing it? If they're in sixth grade or above and they have a math, they're changing classes already. They have a math teacher, social studies teacher, science teacher, etc. My question would be, how often do you all meet to address the literacy needs of my child? Are you all doing the same thing? Do you know what he or she needs? Those are questions we should be asking. And then how can I support you in that work at home? Right? Because we're partners in the work. All right. So then we want to get to, so this is kind of another way to look at identifying and addressing. So you always want to make sure that, again, that we do assessments, because that really gives us those root cause issues. Like, what is at the core of the challenges or the gaps that these particular students may be facing? What is challenging for them? So we don't want to spend time on skills, activities, and strategies in areas where they are already excelling and we know that they have that. We have to understand and know what's causing the gap, right? And then we want to do, again, student-specific interventions Don't let tiered interventions, challenge you. That's professional jargon. We teach children in one of three ways. So generally, especially in the early years, but even as we move forward, in any content area, there's going to be some instruction that we give all of our students. They all need this baseline information. It's going to be high quality reading instruction as it relates to literacy, right, for all of our students. And if we get this right, then we do less of tier 2 and tier 3. If we get tier 1 right, we should reduce the need for tier 2 and tier 3. So then at second level, it's like, okay, we've assessed them. We know where they're having some issues or challenges. We're going to design something specific to them. Now, if they're in a classroom setting, we're going to look at all of our students and say, what do all of them need? What do they all have in common that they need to get better at? They have some challenges, some gaps, and we'll teach all of that. That's that tier 1. There are going to be some students, those small groups or subgroups of students, and we say, oh my gosh, oh, they all are having trouble with this. That's not a them issue. That's a us issue as professionals, right? So then we take a step back and say, oh, we need to reteach this. We need to teach it again. Maybe they didn't get it in the early years, right? We have a teacher shortage. Maybe it was a long-term sub. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, there's a subgroup of students, a small group of students that share common issues, challenges, or reasons why they are not growing as confident and competent readers. We can get them together and provide some instruction to support them. And then for you, that tier 3. Now they can get tier 3 at home. You can pay someone to tutor them, send them to after school tutoring, whatever it may be. That one-on-one is key. That one-on-one is key. And that's what I tool parents to do, right? We tool parents to provide the one-on-one. So you're not worried about finding the time to have to take them to tutoring, finding the extra income, the money to pay for tutoring, right? How do I assess a high quality tutor? No, I have the skills. I spent the time learning. Therefore, I can support my child. In addition to whatever other supports are already in place in a school setting to help them. So if we're doing all of these things at the same time, they're getting all the same information, we're working off the same plan, guess what? They're growing. That gap is shrinking, and it's shrinking rapidly. So they're not walking around with guilt or shame or embarrassment. As we know, adolescent years, peer approval is important, all these things. We want to ensure that they're walking with confidence and we're building their competence, right? All right. So I just wanted to make sure that we are clear on kind of how we assess what they need, then how we go about giving them what they need, right? So next we want to talk about, okay, Katina, we've assessed it. We know what they need. We know how we can break it down. We know why the science of reading is important, what it is, all the things. Now, what can I do to support my children? What can I do to support my children or my students, right? So I wanted to give you some simple and powerful strategy you can try. I can't talk. Let me take a breath. I'm sorry, you guys. And drop if you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns about anything you've heard today, something that's not clear. Please make sure that you are dropping those things in the comments. I come back, I look at the comments. Remember, this is pre-recorded today. So just, feel free, ask any questions, point out anything that's not clear. If I need to give you some additional resources, put it in the comments. I'm telling you, I will come back to those and I will respond to those. I always do, okay? All right. So here's some simple but powerful. I love keep it simple, right? I try not to say stupid anymore, but that acronym KISS, keep it simple, right? But we also want it to be powerful. And these are tools, strategies that we can use to support our adolescent learners, or any learners for that matter, into becoming confident and competent readers. So word study is one. Word study. We want to teach them how to break words apart and explore their meanings. That's what word study is. Prefixes, suffixes, word endings, grammar, right? Word study. How do we get a deep understanding of word structure, morphology, the rules, right, in the English language, which are often difficult. The English language borrows from so many different other groups, Latin, French, Spanish, Greek, right? And so we have to do some word study to really figure out the words that we use in our language. So vocabulary instruction, we want to always focus, pull out, engage with interesting or new words that they encounter in school or life. When they're asking you, what is that? Why is that? What does that mean? If you don't know, look it up. And it's okay to tell them you don't know. We don't know everything. And neither will they. That's what lifelong learning is all about. But we also want to make sure that we're teaching it systematically. We want to focus on key terms and concepts that are related to the particular subject area or content area that they're engaged with at that time. And then when they're doing their reading for pleasure on their free time, then it's really great. Or words that we just encounter in everyday language. It's on a billboard, it's in a magazine, it's on TV, whatever it may be, it's in a movie. What did that mean? Then we can actually work through vocabulary and they're learning words that are meaningful to them. You know, you might even get a little composition notebook or a little book like this, and they can actually create their own dictionary, words that they have learned over time that are important or unique for them. Look, this is purse size. I can take this anywhere I want to go. But they have a tool. So if they encounter words, that's a great strategy. It's very simple, easy. You know, you get these at Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Family Dollar, something like that. If they don't want to journal, then you say, okay, that's okay. Let's just keep track of new words that we encounter. Make it a game, make it fun. All right. Okay, then we talk about comprehension strategies. And oftentimes people say comprehension, they think that means one thing. Absolutely not. There are strategies that we utilize to comprehend, make meaning from text that we read. That might be summarizing, questioning, making inferences, right? To ensure that we are understanding what we read. So it's thinking through your thoughts, comparing texts, what this author said to what this author said, what makes the most sense, reasoning through that, critical thinking, problem solving. All of those things help with comprehension, and they're 21st century skills. Whether they're going to be entrepreneurs, go to a trade or technical school, go to a college or university, those are 21st century skills that employers and that you will need as an entrepreneur. And then also text discussions. Are we meaningfully, not I just like it or I don't like it. Okay, and not just the setting, because now we're talking about adolescent learners, right? So we're not just talking about the setting. We're not just talking about the characters. Who are the characters? No, we're not talking those concrete who, what, you know, when, where questions. We're talking why, how, what do you think? So we're having meaningful text discussions about the text. Again, promoting that analysis, a deeper understanding, that critical thinking, right? And it could be about books, it could be about articles, it could even be a movie. Are we talking about the content that we are engaging with? That's what grows them as readers. That's where we can start. Also, I'm going to tell you this. Many parents, educators of adolescent learners often will say, I didn't know. I didn't know they were in 10th or 11th grade and they were only reading on a second or third grade reading level. And so oftentimes our jaw will drop and we go, how is that possible? Well, because we're told from birth, read to your children, read to your children, read to your children. Reading to our children doesn't afford us the opportunity to hear them read. It doesn't afford us the opportunity to get to know them as readers, how they think through a text, the questions they ask as they read, how they attack an unfamiliar or unknown word. So oftentimes that's what happens with our adolescent learners. They get to 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade. And so someone finally goes, wait, this child is struggling. How's it that we didn't see that? More often than not, because they have figured out ways to maneuver the system. Children are extremely intelligent and, you know, out of sight, out of mind, or behaviors. We're focused on behaviors. Oh, I'm sick, or acting out. So you get out, you go to ISS, or you're suspended, or you're on punishment. So we're focused on that behavior, not the why behind the behavior. And sometimes the behavior occurs because they are struggling. Right? So I just want to point that out. When we talk about these text discussions and word study and comprehension and vocabulary, at the core of that also is listen to them read. Listen to them read early and often. You should not be doing all the reading. Alternate every other night. So you're modeling great reading and you're teaching, supporting them and becoming great readers. And then you're listening to hear that progress, to see that progress, to observe that progress. All right, I hope this is making sense. Last but certainly not least, we want to motivate them. So as I talk about having them read, you don't, for an adolescent, come on, independence is everything. You all know that. We know that. We were adolescents at one point. Think back. I know for some of us it's a long time ago. But think back. Independence is important. Our kids start showing independence at 4 years old. My granddaughter is 4. Certain things she does not want me to help her with. No, grandma. Right? So our children get there at different levels and it continues to grow. By adolescence, we're not picking the books for them. They're picking their own books. So whether it's a bookstore, whether they're reading Audible, from Audible, online books, etc., whether they're going to the library, they should be looking for books that are of interest to them, that excite them. That's half the battle. They have something in their hands or on their screen, right, that they're interested in, they're excited about. A lot of students push back or push against reading because we're dictating what they read. I didn't become a lover of literature, you guys, to be honest, until I went to college and got some smut, my guilty pleasure books, and baby, it took off. As a lover of literature, I knew how to read, but I was not reading for pleasure. But that's what catapulted me, because up until that point, all of my reading had been selected for me by teachers at school, by librarians. My other librarian, Miss Harris at Blenheim Elementary School. Shout out to Miss Harris, y'all. But one of the things that she would do is kind of guide us. She didn't necessarily choose, but she'd ask us a lot of questions and then help us learn how to check out books. So that was great. But for the most part, our books were chosen for us. You all need to read the classics. You need to read these things. Curriculum often dictates that. I'll leave it there. Curriculum often dictates that. And so, yeah, they need to have the independence to find books that excite them, engage them, something they want to learn about. Reading should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be a punishment. Because I see that as well. Parents will, get mad at their children, or they've broken a rule, and the consequence is you go in your room and you read. Okay. Especially for a kid that loves to read, that you say less. They going. But for that kid that struggles, and then you make it a chore or a punishment, you're actually working against yourself. And that's not something we need. Now, this is just practical advice, right? Practical. So rethink that, how we discipline, what we use to redirect. Okay? Reading should never be a punishment, should never be a chore. We want it to be fun. We want to be exciting. We want to be engaging, enjoyable. Okay. Our job is really to teach them how to read, not to ensure that they become lovers of literature. However, if we do our part and we do it well, they eventually may evolve into lovers of literature. Okay. All right. So let's keep it going. So benefits behind the science of reading approach. It really, really helps us very quickly identify challenges, and it provides effective interventions, solutions, strategies to address those gaps. That's the benefit through and through. It's based on evidence, data, research. I should have probably put this slide earlier, but you guys get it. The science of reading approach, it utilizes proven strategies. This isn't one research study. This is decades, study after study after study, and then studies of those studies to ensure that they're accurate, right? These are proven strategies, proven research that have a demonstrable impact on student learning and reading proficiency. What does that really mean? We know that if we do these things, we will see an impact, a positive impact for all students. Their learning across content areas and especially their literacy development. They will become confident and competent readers. And we know that 90% of our kids are capable, barring any significant neurological challenges that they may have, diagnoses that they may have. Our children are able to grasp this concept if we teach it and support them accurately, efficiently, effectively. And it also builds confidence because we assess them and we put a plan in place. They begin to build their confidence. I tell you guys this all the time. I've been saying this for 43 weeks, right? We build their confidence. What does that do? That helps them, that makes them want to try more. The more they try, the more they stick with it. They have persistence and grit and all the things. Then guess what? Their competence has no other choice but to grow. So we celebrate those wins. We build them up. We talk to them about their strengths and we support them in closing the gaps or addressing challenges that they may have. All right. So I just want to make sure we all are aware of that, right? And also, I want to point out we have to be sure that we are consistent across grades, across content areas, across schools. Every child should be able to go to every school in this city and be getting the science of reading. Any curriculum we adopt, it should be following the science of reading, structured literacy. People often ask me, what's the scope and sequence of your parent literacy training? It's the science of reading. I don't follow a particular curriculum. No, I follow the research. We follow the research. That means any parent can apply what we teach them to their child and they will see growth. They will see success. And it's a continuum across grade levels. That's why I could do 42 weeks and address our K3 and then say, okay, 2025, let's hit these adolescents. Skills, the skills are the skills, the strategies, the materials and supplies, the supplies that we use, the approach we may address. An older child may look very different than a younger child, but the skills are the skills. All right. And so we want to make sure that we are going, is this a smooth, seamless, year to year, student by student, right? Framework, approach to ensure that all of our children succeed. All right. So it works. It works. It's been proven time and time again. And it builds that confidence and all the good things that we want for them, right? So I really wanted to make sure that you all understood what the science of reading was, how it helps parents and educators alike support adolescent learning, especially literacy, of course, is what we're talking about. I wanted you all to understand that once we assess them, once we figure out what those gaps are, then we can target our strategies specifically to help them achieve success, close those gaps, shrink them significantly, quickly, build their confidence. And then I also wanted you all to be empowered, but also them to be empowered. Our older students need to be empowered. They need, we having backroom conversations and conferences about them as if they don't know they're struggling. That makes no sense. They need to be at the table with us, right? So not only will parents be empowered, educators be empowered, we want to empower the students themselves to take ownership of their own growth and learning. We want them to be empowered to say, oh, this is how I learn best. This is why I may be where I'm at because of this thing, this little gap in my foundational skill development. Oh, I got this. Oh, yes, I can do this. Then we give them the tools and they're growing confidently, competently, right? And then they're starting to see more success across content areas and throughout their educational journey. And so, again, we want to make sure that our support of them is explicit, is direct to what they need, not what everybody else needs, but what do they need in this moment, right? We already talked about motivating them, the comprehension strategies, the text-based discussions. We already talked about that. I also want you all to know and really hone in on and understand this is a shared responsibility. A lot of times we say we send them to school, they're there 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And I wish that I could say that that's all it takes. That's just not true. And remember, going back to the information that I shared before, is that many of our teachers just haven't gotten this knowledge and they need more of it, especially those in the upper grades. So teachers, parents, and community members should be working together to support their adolescent learners. And we want to build a network where students feel safe to ask questions, seek help, and share their learning experiences. Why didn't you know this? You in 11th grade. What you mean you don't? We're not doing that. We're not. Or, oh, well, I got it. You go get it for yourself. No. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that we're here today and you're still struggling. We're going to put a plan in place to help you, support you, work with you to close the gap you're experiencing. All right. So I just want to make sure that we're really, really clear about that. So what's happening beyond the classroom, right? So at home, you're creating an environment and you're modeling what great reading looks like. We're doing it together. This is a journey. We can't say, oh, well, I got to focus on the little ones. The old ones, you should have got it. Time is out. Nope. Our kids are worth, in anything that we do. If it was a sport, if it was a art or something like that, it was singing, rapping, whatever, we stick with them. We stay with them. Same thing with reading. How do we help them grow? How do we create the environment, the circumstances for them to achieve success? We want to connect them with book clubs, community programs like Dreams, local libraries, where they can get what they need to ensure they continue to grow. And then we want to make sure that they have access to texts, complex texts, libraries, bookstores, online reading resources. I'll share some of those resources that I've shared before. So that if they are a tablet person, a laptop person, a phone person, they want to read on screen, we can do that too. All right. So we want to make sure they have access to text that they like, that excites them, topics they want to learn about. Okay. So those are things that we should be doing at home. All right. So you all, I just want to recap real quick, and then we're gonna, this is it. We went a little bit over today, 47 minutes so far. But let's wrap it up really, really quick. So we know that the science of reading is research backed. It's a body of research that tells us how to approach teaching and improving literacy, right? Adolescence, we know it's a critical time for literacy development. School becomes more challenging. They're attacking more content areas, etc. The demand on them to produce increases. So adolescence is critical. It's a critical time. This is the second time in the phase of life where their brain is firing on all cylinders, growing rapidly. Their bodies are changing as well. So it's crucial. It's crucial for them to find confidence where they can and us to support them. And then you all need to understand and know that you have the power to support your child with simple and effective strategies at home. It is not difficult. I promise you don't have to be a certified teacher to do this work. You just have to have the desire, right, to support your children, know and understand that their life depends on it. The quality of their lives depend on it, right? So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Next week, we're going to dive into understanding structured literacy for adolescents. So science of reading, structured literacy, we'll start looking at some really concrete things around this adolescent literacy journey. We'll break down practical tools for both parents and educators, because remember, some educators are saying they need more information as well. So if you have questions, remember, drop them in the comments, the chat. I'll answer as many as I can before we wrap up and meet again next week. Remember, this is your home. This is your community. Go ahead and ask any questions, share any stories, whatever it is you need for support. I want you all to do that in this group. A couple of announcements. Tomorrow is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, January 15th. Gosh, the 15th day of the month already. I'm a part of the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa. It is the only 101-year-old sorority for Black women in the field of education. We host annually Read Across NSPDK, where we ask everyone on Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday to drop everything and read for an hour. An hour. That could be a straight hour. That could be 2 30-minute blocks. It could be, 3 20-minute blocks. It could be 15 minutes, multiple times throughout the day. But add it up. This link right here, use this link and take the pledge that tomorrow you will read for an hour with your children. And you can be read to. You can read with. Right? You can listen to them read. You all can set up family time and say, we just going to read. We're going to prioritize literacy. So Read Across NSPDK is tomorrow on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, January 15th. Take the pledge, fill out the form, and say you have committed and completed reading for an hour. That don't take much, right? And then if you want to come and meet me in person, if we haven't met before, if you want to support the work of Dreams KC, if you want to come and look at what other resources exist, especially in Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, on January 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. At the West Wyandotte Library. They are hosting an early literacy fair. So I encourage you to come out, come see me, hang out, see what other resources are available in terms of literacy support in our city. There are various organizations that will be there besides Dreams. This is the link for you to be able to register. It's a free event. And if you come and you visit with those of us that are on site, you also get a fabulous bowl of chili and a cinnamon roll, all the things, right? So that's all I have for you all today. As I always say, y'all know what I'm going to say, right? Say it with me. Let's get lit, y'all. That's all I have. I'll see you next week. Drop those comments, those questions, those concerns. Tell me if these sessions are really helpful for you. And that's all I have. I will see you all next time. And again, let's get lit.
Welcome in, grab a seat, let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the